welcome to Technocraft Academy. My name is Tim Singh. I'll be taking you CSS. Um, Having concluded the HTML part, it is pertinent that we continue with CSS. You know, you can think of it as if you're trying to build or erect a building. You know, HTML is just a structural aspect of your building, and the beautification, that gives aesthetic meaning to your building is CSS. We're talking about the plastering, we're talking about the painting, the decoration stuff, and of course, now after the CSS of your building, we're gonna be moving towards electrification of your building, what gives your building behavior, and we are talking about JavaScript in this state. You understand? So CSS, um, you may be wondering what is CSS. I want to assume you're just getting into tech. You know nothing about CSS. You know nothing about front end. You know nothing about coding or whatsoever. Now CSS. Um, what is CSS? CSS is an acronym that stands for CSS is an acronym that stands for Cascading Style Sheet. You know, like I said ab initio, it's something that enables us to style our HTML. You know, we've done HTML, of course, and we're just doing crude styling. You know, all those. Uh, how will I put it? Deprecated styling. You understand? So the much more acceptable, industrially acceptable styling is to make use of CSS. So what is CSS? Like I said, it's cascading. It's an acronym that stands for Cascading Style Sheet. It enables us to style our HTML. Once again, if you didn't get it when I said it initially. So there are three types of CSS. We have the inline CSS, um, Okay, let's head up to, if you are on window, just go to command line. If you are using a system, for those that are using system, if you're on window, go to command prompt. Yes, go to command prompt. You can just, and if you're on Mac, just go to your terminal. If you are using Mac, that is Apple laptop, just go to terminal. But if your operating system is window, just go to command prompt. So let's set it to, you can set it to desktop. We can set it to desktop. You're in the desktop environment. You can say make directory. Um, let's make directory CSS. Yes, by making directory we mean create a folder CSS. So let's change directory to that, cd to that folder CSS. Then so let's type code space dot punch enter. So this we create a folder, and it will take us directly to our VS Code, instead of going through the normal conventional process that we've been going through, we've been making use of. This is quite faster, and we are now growing. Initially I was just taking us through the GUI process, that is the graphical user interface process, but now you are growing a bit, so I should be introducing you to uh command line manipulations and all stuff. So with command line, and if yours is not working, you can just revert back to our whole system. So here, let me create a file. Come to this tray here. Let me collapse it a little bit. So in this file tray here, you can just create more new file. You understand? First of all, let's create our index.html. I know we are not doing HTML, but let's just create it. And of course, we can still say create main.css. Main.css. Of course, CSS is the extension for your file, for the CSS file. You understand? .css is the extension for CSS file. main, anything, it could be anything .css, sure, but I'm using main. It's, I always tell you, it is important to follow conventions. Let me zoom out a bit for you to have a good view. So it is always important to follow convention so as for you not to get into trouble. Not really trouble as per se, but of course, for things not to get confused in the later on for you. So just always stick to convention, which is the best practice. So now, create an index.html file, and of course the main.css file. So the reason why I'll be using index.html is because we'll be making use of some HTML to create example of what we'll be doing in CSS. You understand? So that being said, let me collapse this tree. Yes, so that to give us a good spacing. Then let me make a wall wrap. Go to view, come to wall wrap so that it will come on a new line anytime I. So let me come here. Let me type HTML boilerplate. Um, by convention, remember we don't need this. Let me bring this out. So let me come here. Of course, I don't need this. For now, I don't need JavaScript. So, back to what I was talking about. I said CSS. There are three types of CSS. We have the inline CSS. Let me create a text file so that let me create a text file. Okay, we have the inline CSS. We have the internal CSS, uh, internal CSS, and of course we have the external CSS. Let me zoom out a bit so that yes, it can be. Yes, I hope this is better. So we have the inline CSS, we have the uh, external CSS, and we have the what? I mean the internal CSS, and we have the external CSS. What are these things? I will explain. Inline CSS uh, uh, is like it refers to CSS styles that are applied directly to the individual HTML element, you know, using the style attribute. This method allows us to define specific styles for a particular element. Let me give an example of what I'm trying to talk about. Um, yeah, let's say I have something like, let's say I have something like p tag. Let's say I have something like p tag, for example, and of course, uh, for example, let's say I have something like p tag. Inside the p tag, maybe I create an attribute. I told you whatsoever it is, whatsoever you have inside an element is called an attribute. You know. So let's say I have an attribute. Say I style it this way. Okay. Before I start it, let me write out the p tag. Let's say uh, this is a paragraph. This is a paragraph with inline CSS with inline CSS. You understand? Let's say let me create a word wrap for these two so that I won't view word wrap. Okay, so this is a paragraph with what inline CSS. So inside here, let me give it the inline CSS. Let's say style equals uh, say color. Let me give it a color. What color should I give? Let me say blue. Let me give it a blue color. Let me give it a blue color. Let me give it a font font size of say 16 pixel, 16 pixel. You understand? Let's now say, okay, let's just look at how this example works. You understand? So let's go live and see how it's working in practical. So this is, by specifying the styling inside an element. This process is called inline CSS. You know, that is specifying the styling, targeting a particular element through the attribute. You understand? That is specifying the styling or using the styling in form of an attribute is called what? Inline CSS. So let's go and see how it's looking. This is it. You know, this is the this is the text, this is a p tag, and see how it's been styled. You understand? So let's proceed. Let's proceed. Another one, in this example, let me first of all give a little explanation. In this example, the color, of course, is the color property is set to blue, and of course, the font size property is set to 16 pixel. That is for the p element. So inline CSS it's kind of is useful. Not that it is not useful, but it is useful for applying immediate and specific styling. But it can be very, very cumbersome. It can be hard to manage if you have multiple elements with style. So it has a deficient. In fact, the deficiencies, the disadvantages are much more than the advantages. You understand? So it is not recommended for best use. It is not recommended for. It's not a recommended way of styling your elements. You understand? Or applying CSS to your HTML. It is not recommended. You understand? So because imagine a situation where you have 14, 13, in fact 3,000, 14,000 lines of code. So you now be applying styles to each of the each of the elements, which is very, very cumbersome. So applying style to each of the elements means if you have a bug or you have an error at some point, locating it will be very hard. It will be very tasking. So it is not recommended for best use case. So another one that we have is internal CSS. Which is the second one. This one here is internal CSS. So what is an internal CSS? Internal CSS is also known as, let me first of all tell you how another name for internal CSS. It is also known as embedded CSS. You understand? Or say a style element CSS. It involves placing CSS styles within the style tags in the head section, and of course this section here, the head section, you understand, or the head section of the HTML document. So it applies styles to the element within the HTML file. Okay, let me give an example of how to use that. Let's say under this title, let me say under this title, and I'll say it's something like let me put it under this title. It should work fine. Let's say, let me give it a title of say internal CSS example. Internal CSS example. Okay, example. Internal CSS example. Let me now say, and I'll create a kind of style tag here. Let me put it beneath here and say, okay, this is a style tag. A style tag. Let me create a style tag. Um, me expand it and say, let me create my p tag. So I want to style. Um, let me first of all remove this attribute. Let's assume I didn't style. Uh, I didn't style. I didn't have. Let's assume I didn't. We didn't have. Uh, let's assume we didn't have the inline CSS. So we can now target. Here we are going to be targeting the paragraph tag directly from here. You understand? We're going to be targeting the paragraph tag. Let's say color, color, uh, color is what? Blue. You can say color is blue. We can say yes. We can say font size, of course, just the way we had the other time. Font size. You can say font size is also say 16 pixel. Font size is also what 15 16 pixel. So let's see how it's working in practical. Let's collapse this. Let's go live again. You see that it's applied the same thing. You understand? You see that it's also working as it was for uh, inline CSS. So that is that about it. Um, but this also has advantages and of course disadvantages. So in this one, we what I did was just to uh, um, define the CSS within the style tag. You understand? So I define this CSS. I target this paragraph tag, you know, paragraph tag within what? Within this style tag. You understand? And of course, the style are applied to all paragraph tag. So if you have any other paragraph tag, it will be what? Applied to all paragraph tag. So we are going to be getting to know this kind of targeting, how to target elements, you know, what they are called, how they are being used. She understands. So as you progress, you get to know that. So so because I just wrote p tag, you understand. So by writing p tag, so all the paragraph elements is gonna be what? Targeted. All the what? Paragraph element will be what? Targeted in this case. So that is that. So um that is within the HTML. So internal CSS is also useful for styling multiple elements consistently within a single HTML file. You understand? But also has its own deficiencies. Trying to uh, it means all your styling will now be within the H section. Pushing the X section down, making your code look very ugly, not properly formatted, and all that. So if in case you have, let's assume you have a situation where there are on thousands of codes that you might have coded out and you want to style them, so you have to be putting everything, every of your styling, targeting every tags, every element, every ID or classes within, or attributes within this edge section, which is not it is not a good practice as well. So this now brings us to the the last types of CSS, which is what? The external CSS, which is more, in fact, it is the best practice. The best practice is what? External CSS. So what is an external CSS? External CSS involves um, creating a separate CSS file, which I did, that is with the .css extension file, you understand, and linking it to an HTML document using the link, that is the link tag, this link tag here, using this link tag here, you understand. You will see that by creating by you make use of the boilerplate code, it has already given us um, giving us um, the link tag by default, and of course showing us the relationship, you understand, which is what? Style sheet. You understand the relationship attribute which is style sheet. Then the hypertext referencing, which is where you will put our what um, CSS file. You understand? So remember, I said external CSS involves creating a separate CSS file with the .css extension, and of course, and linking it to an HTML document using the link tag. So this method allows you to define styles within a kind of separate file, making it easier to manage styles across multiple HTML files. Uh, let me give an example. Let me give an example. Let me say, let's assume uh let's assume I didn't declare this. You understand? No, I just need only this. Copy this. Let's assume I didn't declare this. Let's assume this is not there. You understand? So we are gonna be linking it. Um so let's go to main.css, and of course paste paste this, you understand, in our main dot what CSS. So we are going to be targeting these from our main dot CSS. You understand? You will see that even the VS Code has already given me um the a kind of icon that shows that yes, it is really blue, because I just created an external, it is the best use. So that is that. So let me link it. So yeah, I'm going to link it because of course there is no need for me to, I can just link it directly. Let me say type, let me give it a type. Let me give it a type. This is not complete. Let me say type is what, um text slash css. Let me say text slash css, and of course let me give it this, let me reference it as hypertext referencing is going to be what, style, no, not style, main.css. We have what, main dot css. That is where our CSS file is. So let me stop this server. So if I go live now, it will work as it should. It will work as it should. Let me change this test so that you will know that it worked. Let me say with external CSS. Let me say external CSS so that you will know it worked. You will know, you will not say maybe it's previous, you understand? So it will give you um, if the fact that it worked. So let me say external CSS, you know. So let's go. Let me go live, and of course it worked. So that is that about types of CSS. So now we're going to be moving towards another section, another topic, which is uh, we're going to be talking about CSS selector, CSS selectors. We're going to be talking about CSS selectors. What are they? What are CSS selectors? If you have been asked, or if by adventure um, s- somebody asks you what are CSS selectors, CSS selectors are used to, these are selectors, or these are concepts that are used to target specific HTML elements and apply styles to them. You understand? So there are several types of CSS selectors. You understand? Each of each with its own syntax and purpose. You understand? So yes, let me give you some common CSS selector. We have the element selector. An element selector targets HTML elements. The one we've been using is an example of the element selector. You understand? So it an element selector target HTML elements based on their target name. So it applies styles to all elements of the specified tag. So every the element selector that I did, every other paragraph element, p tags there, will have the same styling because I targeted what, the element selector, which is what, the paragraph P. You understand? So, like I said, the CSS rule will select all P tags or P elements and set their text color to blue, which I have done. So if you have any other P element there or any paragraph element there, because I have I've made use of an element selector, it will, the CSS rule will apply to all paragraph tag. And of course, we have another one. We have class selector. Let me give an example of class selector. Let me say in this CSS here, I decided not to use this. Uh, I decided not to use this. Let's say, okay, let's go to our CSS, HTML. Let's say here, I create, let's say for example, I created um, class, I give it a class attribute, say of a class attribute of say blue. I say blue text. For example, I give it a class attribute of blue text. Here, I will not type an element selector here. I will target the class. And here, let me create another p tag. Let me create another p tag. Let's say, sorry, let me create another p tag. So here, I won't use a class here. I can just say, let me not say anything. Let me just say um, another selector. Let me say another p tag, another p tag, another p tag. You understand? Let me just say another p tag. So in this main.css, if I just say something like say, because it's a class, anytime you have a class attribute, if you want to target that class attribute using CSS, you use dots, the class name, that is the attribute name, the class attribute name. Because it's a class, you use dot. So the attribute name was what? Blue, sorry, the attribute name is what? Blue text. You understand? The attribute name is what? Blue text. So um by typing blue text, let me put off the port and go live. Let's go live. So with that, by because I'm targeting the class attribute, it will not, the styling will only affect, we only take, if have effect on this one with this class attribute, which is this is a paragraph tag. Let me change, I will change the color to red so that it will be different from what we have. Do you understand? So the styling will only have effect on this one with what? Class attribute. She understand, which is what? Blue text. The class attribute says what? Blue text. It will not have effect on this. It will only have effect on this if I use element selector. You understand? But here we are using a class selector, so it will only have effect on this one that we set the class attribute for. So let's see. Let me change it to red. Let me change it to red. Red. Let me change it to red. So that you will see how it works. So let's go live. You will see that this another tag is another p tag. It's not affected. It's it didn't, the CSS is not applied to this second p tag, and this first p tag, the CSS is applied to it. Now let me go back to what I said before and target um and use the paragraph selector so that you will see it. So let's assume I want to use this. I want to use an element selector, and let me change this to green. No, I'm not using RGB. I'm not using RGB. Let me change this to green. Sorry, I'm not using RGB. Let me change this to green. And so let me change this to green. So let's say, let me stop the port. Let me go live again. You will see that because I'm using an element selector. The element selector will target every uh every every tag with what paragraph with p tag. Every of the p tag will be what targeted. Let me put um an h1 so that you will know that it will not affect the h1. Let me put an h1. Let me say this is h1. Let me say this is h1. Understand? So the effect will only be what will only be felt, we only be on these p tags because I'm targeting what paragraph. You understand? So I'm using element selector targeting what the p tag. So let's go live and see how this is working. You see that the green is only having effect on what the let me zoom out. um so it's only having effect on what on this uh, p tag. You see that the h1 um is not is not affected, or it's not targeted. So that is that about class selector and of course element selector. Another form of selector is id selector. You understand? id selector. Let's say an ID selector target a specific HTML element based on its unique ID attribute. Of course, it's also used an attribute. So it applies style to a specific element with the matching ID. So for example, let's say let me give the H1 an ID. Let me give the H1 an ID. Say let me give the H1 an ID. Let me give it an ID of say, let me call it say your ID can be anything. You can name your ID anyhow, but it depends. It now depends on how you are going to make reference to it on. I mean, in the CSS file. So let me just call it. Let me call it header, for example. You understand? Let me call it header, and of course, let me go to my main.css, and of course, let me copy this to C, Ctrl V. Now, remember I said something about class selector. Class selector, you will use what? Dot before the what? The attribute name. You understand? But ID selector, you use pound sign, which is the hashtag. Let me give it a space. Let me give it a space. You give it a hashtag, which is a pound sign, and the name of the ID. You understand? Header. So in this case, I want to use I want to give it a gray color. Let me say gray color. You understand? Let me give it a gray color. And font size. Okay, let me reduce the font size. Let me say the font size should be uh let me say the font size should be 5, to make it smaller. You understand? So the font size is 5 pixel, and of course the color. So now it will target. Remember, class selector uses dot, the class name, and ID selector uses pound sign, the hash icon, hash sign to what to depict ID, the hash sign and the name of the attribute. Then if it is class, dot and the name of the attribute. I hope you won't forget that. So let's go to HTML code, stop the port, go live again. You'll see you'll see that our H1 is so small. let's change it. Let's change it to, let's restyle it to, of course, um let's say 20 pixel, the 20 pixel, and of course, let's stop the port. Let's go live. Yes, this is our what? H1. You see that it's styled in what? Gray color. Don't confuse this for black. Let me change the gray color to, say, let me change it to, let me change it to, say, yellow. Okay, let me choose a yellow green. Let me choose a yellow green. I'm sure you'll be wondering how I get to know my colors. You'll get to know that. Don't worry. You'll be trained on how to do that. Let's just proceed. So this is it. So that is that about ID selector. Another form of selector is, we have the attribute selector. The attribute selector target HTML elements based on uh, based on the presence or value of their attribute. It allows you to select element based on attribute conditions. You understand? So, for example, let's say we have this. Um, let's assume I am not. Uh, let's say I'm targeting the attribute of the H1. Maybe I'm not targeting the. Let me see. Yeah, let's say I'm targeting the attribute of the H1 instead of let's say I want to target the attribute. I can say something like this. I can say um I can say um I want to say, okay, let me create another HTML. Let's say I want to create another HTML. No, not another HTML, another tag rather. Let me say I want to create say let me create a p tag, and let me say draggable. Let me say draggable equals true. You understand? So let me say draggable equals true, and then I'll say uh drag me. Let's say something like, say, drag me. You understand? Let me say draggable equals true, and I'll say something like drag me. This is an attribute, of course, and of course this is the content. So let's go to the CSS and design it. Let me Ctrl Z, undo what I did. Okay, let's now say, um, let me now target the attribute. Target the tag, the element using the word attribute. So to use the attribute, I will now say something like, say, p. I can say something like, this draggable. Let's say draggable. I don't know if it is this draggable that I use. Let me check again. Okay, correct. I can say draggable equals true. I can say draggable equals true. You understand? I'll now create my CSS, and I'll say create my CSS and say something like, let's say color, and say color, and say uh red, the red. You understand? So CSS will target this p tag with this what attribute. You understand? So let's see how it's working in practical. Let's go live, and this is it. drag me. I hope you're getting a drift of all these things. So please don't let it confuse you. The another one that we have is another one that we have universal selector. This universal selector is um it means it doesn't care about the this is what universal selector is. This is what it is. It is by using universal selector is by using uh this, you understand? It's by using this, say against this. Let's say color red. It comes with this syntax. This universal selector does not care about the ID or class or attribute. It applies CSS style to whatever is being used. You understand? It's recursively used. You understand? Then we have child selector. We have child selector. A child selector targets elements that are, direct children of a particular element. It applies styles to elements that are immediate children of another element. For example, I can have don't worry, I'll be using them I'll be using them as example in our subsequent lessons. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to, um, just don't want to start piling up. I just want my ultimate aim is to see you, or to have you understand what is being taught, rather than voluminously compiling notes and notes and notes and lectures are much more important in you understanding than you completing volumes of uh, notes and lectures. You understand? So let's go back to let's have another concept. We have something like css property css properties. CSS properties. What are CSS properties? CSS properties are like, say, uh, when you that's changing. It's about changing appearances of our tests in our website. Like we had. Remember, we gave a color. Remember, we had something like this. Say H1 in our CSS when we're target low. I say P. Let me use P. I think I used P tag, and now we now have something like, say, color. We have say blue. Okay, okay. I think I'm in the CSS environment. Oh, I'm in a text environment and it's giving me CSS. Okay, okay, it's good. Let's say we have this. Um, I said color. I said color blue. You understand? And I said again. I said I said color blue. You can say font size. Remember, I said something like font size. Um, I said font size to be what? 20 pixel. Set font size. I said 16 pixel. You can put 20 pixel. Um, you can say something like font weight, font weight. Yes, font weight. Say we can say bold. We have different kind of font weight. You understand? Let's now say font family. I'm trying to give you to create the attributes. CSS properties rather. Font family. We can say something like, say, sans serif. And say, look at VS Code has already given us a lot of. We have a vertical, we have area, we have sans regular. Lucida sans regular, Lucida sans, Gil sans. So sans, let's say sans serif. Let me do away with this. Let's say sans serif, and of course. So these are what CSS properties. Not all CSS properties, of course. the major CSS property. You understand? So we have the color blue. Remember I said it's about changing the appearance of our text in our website, the appearances of our content in our website. You understand? So we have color blue, font size 20 pixel, font weight bold, font family to be what sans serifs. Remember VS Code showed us different kind of font family. You understand? Now this font size, I know you will be wondering how I got this font size or how I was accurate. Let me remove these things so that it will not be treated as this thing is disturbing me. So sorry. This font size 20 pixel. I know you'll be wondering how I got the font size to be 20 pixel. Well, of course, why did I use pixel? Pixel is commonly used though, but not because I want to use it, and it is not because it is the standard anyway. You understand? Um, Pixel, which stands for one px, which stands for px. We can say, let me clean this off. Let me clean this off. Let me. So we can say pixel to mean. Let me rename this. Okay, we can say pixel to mean. Let's say one pixel equals the same thing as saying one divided by 96 inch. 96 inch. You understand? That's the size of a pixel, which is the same thing as 0.26 mm equivalently. You understand? So another way to represent font size is, of course, in points. We have 1 point to be 1 pt to be that is for point to be one divided by 72 inch. You understand? Which is equivalent to say 0.35 mm. Yeah, understand. So this can be visibly to get to have this 1 point. I think if you have worked on Microsoft Word before, MS Word, on document, um, in MS Word, this is visibly measured in MS Word. So when you select 12 fonts, the normal 12 fonts, when you're trying to select fonts in MS Word, you are invariably selecting 12 pt. You understand? So which will be the same as the size of your website. You understand? The size of of text on your website. You understand? So another way of representing font size is em, which is pronounced m. You understand? Em. Then we have another one. We have rem. You understand? Which is pronounced uh, RM. You understand? So what is M? What is RM? In CSS, both M and REM are, let's say, rem, but it's pronounced RM. A relative unit of measurement used to specify length and sizes. You understand? They are particularly useful in creating scalable and responsive designs. You understand? So the EM unit is relative to the font size of the parent element. Take note of that. So when you specify a value in EM, it is calculated based on the current font size of the element or its nearest parent with a definite font size. So, for example, you can have something like say, uh, uh, you can say something like you can have something like say p. Sorry, okay. You can have something like say p tag, say font size. Have something like say font size, 16 pixel, for example, 16 pixel, and of course, sorry, 16 pixel, for example, and say margin, you can have margin to be one rem, one rem. You understand? One em. Sorry, let me use em. I have something like say one em. You understand? So this margin will be assume the font size is 16 pixel. You understand? This margin will be what 16 pixel. That is 1 m multiplied by what 16 pixel. So that is that about uh m. So understand. So in this code now, the margin of p element will be equivalent to what 16 pixel. You understand? So 1 m is equivalent to what 16 pixel because it is calculated relative to the font size of the parent element. You understand? So this is the parent based on the parent element. You understand? So rem, which is rm, which is pronounced rm, it's a unit. Of course, like I told you, it's a unit, and the short form of it is root m. That rm is this rm here means root m. You understand? Root m is relative to the font size of the root element, typically say the html element, unlike m, which is calculated based on the font size of the nearest parent with a defined font size. Uh, rem is that is rem that is rem is always calculated based on the root element of for the size. For example, say you can have say you can have say let's say you can have html, can have can have HTML font size, for example, 16 pixel. You understand? So we can have, for example, we can have that, which is a which is root font is 16 pixel. You understand? So that is that, and we can have after having that, then we can now say we now want to have the p tag. Say have the p tag to be what font size. Have the p tag to be font size to be what say 1.5 rem. You understand? Then you can still have the margin to be what to margin to be what 2 rem, 2 rm. You understand? So the font size will be 24 pixel, which is what 1.5 rem multiplied by 16 pixel, and the margin, which is 2 rem, will be 32 pixel, which is 2 rem multiplied by 16 pixel. You understand? So in this code now, the font size of the p element will be 24 pixel, which is 1.5 times the root font size, and the margin will now be what 32 pixel, which is what 2 times the root font size. So the key difference between, you might be wondering what are the differences. So the key difference between m and rm is their reference point for calculating sizes. You know, m is relative to the font size of the parent element, while rm is relative to the font size of the root element. Remember, let me repeat it. M, which is em, is relative to the font size of the parent element, while rem, which is rm, is relative to the font size of the root element. So since rem, that is rem, is not affected by the nested font sizes, it is commonly used for creating consistent and scalable layout across different sections of the web page. You understand? So both M and REM are very powerful, are so powerful for building responsive designs, as they adapt automatically when the font size of their reference element changes. So they provide a kind of flexible way to create designs and scalable and scale they scale proportionally across various screen sizes and of course devices. So that is that. So the difference between rem and pixel. I've told you the difference between and rem. What about pixel? The main differences between rem and pixel is the unit in CSS file, or the unit in CSS, which lies in their relative or absolute nature and their responsiveness to changes in font size. Let me break it down. M, like I said, is relative unit. The M unit is relative to the font size of the parent element. The cascade effect, if nested, the cascade effect, if nested within element with defined font size, the M value compounds and adjusts based on each parent font size. Then, if you're talking about the responsiveness or the responsive to font changes, when the font size of a parent element changes, all child elements using M unit will adjust accordingly. You understand? Yeah. Then, for REM, the relative unit of rem is relative to the font size of the root element, usually HTML. You understand? Then the independent of nesting talks about, unlike EM, which is M, REM values are not affected by nested font sizes and only depend on the root element font size. Then, if you're talking about the responsive to being responsive to the root font size changes, when the font size of the root element changes, all rem values on the page adjust accordingly. So then, how about pixel? Pixel is an absolute unit. The pixel unit represents an exact fixed size on the screen and is not dependent on other factors. Talking about the independent of font sizes of pixel values do not adjust automatically based on font sizes of or parent elements. Then, if you're talking about the consistent uh, and fixed size, pixel pixel values remain the same regardless of changes to font sizes or other elements. So, in summary, we can say M, rem are relative units that adjust based on font sizes, while PZ is an absolute unit that remains fixed regardless of other factors. You understand? M is relative to the font sizes, let me repeat myself, of the parent element, while rem is relative to the root element font sizes. Both M and rem provide some kind of responsiveness to changes in font size, making them useful for building scalable and adaptable design. So on the other hand, Pixel provides precise control over specific sizes, but lacks some kind of responsiveness to changes in font size or other elements. You understand? So, I think I will stop here. Then in the next class, we'll be talking about other font weights that we've seen. We'll be talking about text align. We're talking about CSS box model, which has to do with margin, padding, and border. We'll be talking about CSS cascade, which deals with specificity and inheritance. We'll be talking about uh, combining selectors and stuff like that. So for now, we are stopping at this uh, junction. So thank you very much for attending the class. You can feel free to like the video if you enjoy the class, and of course you can share it. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, and you feel it is worth subscribing, please do. You understand? Because by subscribing and clicking on notifications, you get notified when lectures are being posted without you even being told to go to the to go and verify. You understand? Thank you very much and appreciate. God bless.